roping, and I'm one of the guys that's been around the longest, obviously, and learned how to win and stay winning all my life. So there's definitely a trick to it. If you do have a question, you're not going to hurt my feelings a bit by interrupting me or stopping me and asking something. I'm hoping that this seems like this time goes by really fast, but hoping that you guys go away benefiting from this time. One thing I was going to talk about is practice program. More and more and more through the years, I've done about 600 roping schools, and I've noticed, that hardly anybody has a great practice program. And it kind of really makes you wonder. I use an example of like kids, that are running around on the playground and playing basketball or whatever. And they love playing basketball just kind of like we do roping. And they'll play and play and play, but they won't get much better. But then you watch them like go through maybe a good coaching program from elementary, junior high, high school, or whatever. And when they're taught the fundamentals really good, and they're explained how to do drills, then basically what the practice or what the scrimmage does for a basketball player or a football player, the scrimmage lets us know how good our players are doing. Does that make sense? So, but if you scrimmage all the time, it's almost insanity. It's like going out and just roping all the time and not getting any better and being aggravated and, going back, unsaddling, going back in and wishing that you'd had a better night. But when the more I teach and the more I consider myself a coach, I try to explain that to, all the people that, try to plug into my program, is that, we've got to learn how to identify what's going on in our roping, and then we got to isolate that problem, and then we've got to go practice it. And I can remember when I was a kid, I was like anybody else. I loved scrimmaging, going up and down the court and playing the game. And when the coach would blow the whistle, it would like be so aggravating, because it's like, oh, not again, we got to do drills. And but obviously he understood, the dribbling's not getting better, the passing's not getting better, the shooting's not getting better. Alan, we need to work on dribbling. Jake, you need to work on shooting. And we'd work on whatever drills, and then when we got back into scrimmage, our level of play would go up. And obviously we liked that, but we just didn't like taking that step back. But I really try to help people with that. When they come and practice with me, and like we'll usually start on the ground, and I'll watch their swing and their delivery, and then we'll work on the Smarty, and we'll go slow, medium, fast, and then we'll go on steers. And almost everybody ropes cattle good for a while, and then when we see what's going wrong, we'll go back and we'll isolate those things and work on drills, and then we'll rope cattle again. But I hardly ever notice anybody do stuff like that on their own. They will just basically, because of habits, they'll get into the practice pen and just go saddle up, bring the cattle up. Maybe one or two guys kind of want to throw a few loops, but they don't really want to slow the other guys down, because they're revved up and they want to run cattle. And I've just watched that all my life. And the guys that I've helped and showed them how to do this, they've gotten a lot better. Some even go into the finals and winning world championships. I'm really proud of like my coaching ability and my program. But and whether it's, let's say, Patrick or Paul Eves or the guys that have helped coach Clay Tryon, to that extent where they practice all the time and they're that dedicated, wanting to go to the top, or it's somebody that just does it for a hobby, honestly, your fundamentals are your best friend. So I was going to give you a couple examples of isolate something, identify something, isolate it, and fix it. And a couple things I always explain, at my schools, you have position, swing, timing, delivery for a heeler, and you have position, swing, and delivery for a header. And position, my terminology, so that I get everybody on the, on the same mindset as me, is like a racetrack. This would be lane 1, explaining my position on the horse. You don't want to be in lane 1. Over here is lane 2, and if you can always stay in lane 2, head nor heeling, it's awesome, because you don't have to lean over to see the left leg, or you don't have to lean over to see the left horn, but you can sit up and you don't disturb your posture. Your posture can stay right, but yet you're still in a really good position to rope. Everything's almost centered underneath your arm when you're in lane 2. Lane 3 is where you're a little bit too wide. A heeler that's cutting the corner too much, a header that's let his horse leak over here. So because of that, like establishing that right off the bat, that helps people, have that mental picture, where are they supposed to be. The other thing about, like, basically position-wise is, I call it motor skills. Your ability to control your left hand and your feet. Like, you wonder why a lot of people heeling, like, come in there and their horse always gets too close with them, and then they're having to sit back and they end up usually dropping their shoulder and dropping it in the dirt. Well, it's really pretty simple. It's motor skills. When I'm coming in off the corner, coming into a steer, what I've got to do as I'm coming in there, I've got to disengage my leg pressure depending on my horse. If my horse is a little bit free, I got to quit kicking him and then just throttle him in here. And I have this deal in my mind like an invisible barrier, like a heading barrier, and I don't never break that barrier with my horse's chest. So I try to teach the heelers, my heelers, like, wherever you want to be, whatever that closest spot is that you want to be, start imagining there's a barrier there and being real respectful of it, so that when you come in there with your horse, you're never going to let his chest get any closer than where that barrier is right there. And to do that, you're going to have to establish a good left hand, and you're going to have to back off with your legs a lot of times. Now, some horses are so cowy that you'll give them more rein, and you'll use your legs, and you'll put more energy in your legs to keep them up there where they need to be. So it really depends. So a lot of people seem like they have a horse that's either a little ratty or a little free, and they don't ride one as well as the other, depending on their style. But it's really good to learn how to ride any kind of a horse. So the way I call it, I can be what I need to be to help this horse be his best. Usually somebody like Jake Barnes or Jade Corkle can get on someone's horse and make that horse nearly look better when they're riding him than what that guy that owns the horse is, because they know what to do with their hands and feet. So, like, for instance, that problem, let's say that the heeler that gets in too close all the time, I've got a drill, what I call the corkscrew drill with the Smarty, that I'll basically have whoever's driving come out, go around in a big circle, once, twice, sometimes 3 times, and I'll have that driver really stay communicated with me. Like, a lot of times it's my son Tyler, and I'll have him, he knows pretty much what I'm working on with my horse, and he'll look at me, and I might, like 1 more time around or 2 more times. But what I'll do is as he's going in the circle, I'll keep my horse at 10 foot wide, and I'll keep him back here at 10 o'clock. What I mean by 10 o'clock is, if I'm looking straight ahead, that's 12 o'clock, 11 o'clock. I spot my legs at 10 o'clock. If I'm riding too high, that's 9 o'clock. And you're going to run by the corner sometimes if your header really ropes and takes them out of there quick. At 10 o'clock, you have your horse and you has time to read the corner. So I teach my horse to go around this circle at 10 o'clock and 10 foot wide. And it's amazing when I have people do this, as they're swinging their rope and start into this drill, which seems simple. is they'll go a couple strides and their horse will start leaking in like this because they anticipate, and we do that a lot too. And I'll tell them, you've got to quit anticipating coming in there. You've got to relax. And if the Smarty doesn't go in anywhere, if you don't see him take the corner and go anywhere, well, then there's no reason for you to go anywhere. Use your left leg, hold your horse's rib cage out. We control our horse's body with our left leg. We control the horse's head, neck, and partial shoulders with our reins. Some people try to control the whole horse with just the reins. And a lot of times what that does, it just creates the horse to turn his head away from the target. Instead of me, I want my horse's nose to be in just a fraction so that I know that he's watching and he's got focus on the legs. And then I've got my leg into him a little bit if I need to, that keeps his shoulder lifted up. So I have a really nice, like, can you kind of see the curvature I'm doing with my hand here? Whatever circle that I'm going in, I want my horse's head, shoulders, his spine, and his hips to be in this circle. So we're going around and my horse is staying in position. I'm working on my body posture. I'm holding my hand real still. And whatever this horse needs, if he leaks up, I'll steady him and get him back. If he wants to back out on me, I make him stay there. And it really sounds like simple, like just keeping that horse in that same position, but it's amazing. 10 people that do this, 9 of them can't hardly do it. Even some of my buddies that are real top level ropers, they're like, hey, that drill's harder than you think, huh? And what I'll have to do, even on some really top guys, I'll have to tell them to quit swinging the rope. I'm like, just hold your rope and focus on your left hand and your feet. And then I'm able to start. I mean, my training program is honestly pretty in depth. And in a sense, it has to be if you're going to understand your roping. But if you're swinging your rope when you're heading or heeling, what are you probably focused on? Anybody? Roping, not riding. I mean, you got riding, you got roping, right? I mean, in a sense, I try to really keep it simple. We're riding and we're roping. But a lot of times, if you don't, like, say, put your swing down, you're not going to really focus on your riding. So what I do is like, and I do this myself a lot of times, I'll have them quit swinging, focus on your left hand and your feet. So I'm doing nothing, but I'm isolating my concentration now on that. Keeping him right in that spot all the way around. Horse's head is bent. He's getting nice and collected. I'm riding with him. I'm keeping my posture right, which to give you a little bit of everything, you know, in my hour, what is good posture? Sitting up straight with your shoulders, your hips, and your heels in line. And when I'm up straight like that, and instead of having my shoulders east and west, with my hips, I'll rotate and bring my shoulder back just a little bit. I won't overdo it because I don't want to pull my hip and not ride balanced. I ride balanced from here down, but then I just pull my shoulder back just a little bit where I can get power and extension out of my arm. So I'm riding around practicing good posture, holding my rope, really concentrating on keeping that horse there. And if after one circle, it's good. If it takes 2, fine. But after I keep him in this circle, then I'll have Tyler like accelerate down the arena towards the catch pin. And what that does, it makes my horse open his stride up, you know, and hopefully doesn't switch leads on me. A lot of times when you speed up, your horse will switch leads, and I'm really big on having them hold their lead so I don't feel him switching back and forth. So he opens my horse's stride up. I hustle up there to whatever speed that I'm wanting to rope at. I concentrate on holding my horse out. He gives me whatever corner that I want. And that's what I'm pretty proud of with what I've done here. I've tried to make the Smarty to where I would like to practice on it. And obviously it's one of the most talked about things right now, and it's because it worked. The top guys love to heel it and practice on it. But what I mean by what kind of corner, sometimes you get a sharp corner and the steer goes out of there fast. Sometimes you get a real slow, floaty corner and the steer hangs in front of you. So I can have Tyler give me whatever type corner that I want. So maybe I accelerate out of here, I start slowing, watching my corner, and whatever the corner Tyler gives me, I get my horse collected and I match up with the corner, and I put my horse's shoulders and his hips. I'll move over here to where the idea is to get your horse's shoulders and his hips lined up in lane 2, far enough back to where you can keep forward momentum coming with the steer. That make sense? So like watch the way I back out of this. I've got a stride that's nearly straight here, and then I come in a gradual corner where it's easy for my heel horse. So I move into that corner and get my horse's shoulders and hips straight, and I practice not messing that up. Keep throwing him out of frame. And what do I mean by that? Like, somebody help me. How do you... Yeah, what can I do to kind of cause that? Yeah, if you don't have pressure on the inside leg, if you have too much pressure on the inside leg, and that's the thing that some of these drills will really make you conscious of, is like, what are you doing with your hands and your feet? If a horse is turning his head on you, if he's quartering on you, if he's going the other way, if he's backing up on you, guess whose fault it is every time? Yeah, it's pilot error. I mean, not everybody likes to hear that, but including myself, if my horse comes around and gets to doing something like fading behind the steer and turning his head in front of me, I'm doing something that causes that. I might be putting pressure out in that right stirrup, and then he follows my weight, and next thing you know, I'm covering cattle up. And then because he's covered my left leg up, I have to lean over here to look to try to see it, drop my shoulder. I mean, it's really a domino effect. So these things are like so fundamental, but man, they help you so much. If you can learn to ride framed up, if you get a revelation of what it is to ride framed up, then your horse, I swear, if you came to my class long enough and I was able to help you ride framed up, you could start riding horses, and in a couple months, the horse would be better and you could make money training horses. It's so easy to train horses. If you go the right speed and you ride them framed up, that's all it takes. They just need repetition. They're just like we are. They just need to go slow, have the right repetition, and they don't need us messing around with our body. Now that's easier said than done, because when you're aggressive and you're roping, you know, you're moving your feet around, you're bumping them where you don't need to bump them. But that's where going slow helps so much, because does anybody know what a long trot is, about how fast that is? Anybody? Give me a mile per hour. Hey, don't feel bad, because I went 20 some years and didn't, huh? 5? 6? It's really, it's in between 6 and 8. And obviously, depending on the horse or whatever. But I've heard some speed thrown out there in some of the articles lately, that like somebody was saying that certain guy was practicing at 25 miles an hour, you know, in order to get ready for fast handles, and you can't rope nothing 25. That is, I mean, I really started paying attention to what the speed was. And you know, my point in that is 6, 7, 8 miles an hour, like a long trot. I can watch, say, you and your horse, and maybe you have 3 different horses. You get on one horse and we're doing these drills at 6, 7 miles an hour. His eyes will be calm, he'll be relaxed, and he'll be picking up on everything you're showing him. You'll be relaxed. I'll watch your eyes. I'll watch how you're breathing. Then as you speed up, you might stay hooked and just stay relaxed and keep executing everything good, 8, 9, 10, 11 miles an hour. but there's a speed that that horse will start having anxiety and start getting worked up. And it's just like the temperature gauge on a truck. We have to be smart enough that when their temperature gauge starts getting up there, you can hold them there for a little bit to put a little pressure on them, but then you got to back out of it. And I've made as many mistakes as anybody has with all that, but now that I've done a ton of coaching and all the years behind me, I mean, honestly, I think it's insane when I watch somebody come and run, take a young horse and run fast steers, like too many fast steers, and see the horse just blow his mind. And then he's hot, he's mad, the guy's mad, the horse is mad, and pulling, jerking on him, and it's just like, oh my gosh, that whole thing could have been, eliminated. So anyway, my point is, go at a long trot. A slow lope is around 9 miles an hour, 10 miles an hour, and find out right off the bat, where does my horse start getting nervous? About 12, 13 miles an hour, and where do I do my best at? Just so you know. And then you can work on these drills. Here's just, hopefully throw some interesting facts out here to you, but do you know they're obviously, like in a 4-second run on fast cattle, from stride to stride, there's not much time, right? It's like jumping rope really quick. And when it's really fast like that, you don't have much time to think from stride to stride. So what part of your mind are you using? Your subconscious, right? You can't think through it. But at 8 miles an hour, a long trot, like, you can really think, you can think through every stride. And remember when people say, I can only think of one thing at a time in the run. That's not necessarily true. At 6 miles an hour, I mean, you can go from one thing to another, to another, to another. You can properly have a methodical process to where, okay, I got my haze out of the box, second stride, I'm starting to get my arm up, I'm watching the feet. I mean, at 6, 7 miles an hour, you can go through your run and you can consciously work on this process all the way to your slack and your dally. That is the way that I would teach a young person to rope, and that's the way that, and then when it looks like their posture is good, their swing is good, then speed them up. Okay, I'll talk a little bit about the swing here, and I'm trying to set a foundation for you guys to realize like what speed does to you if you put too much speed too quick. But what's the definition of a good swing? Like, if I was to ask you guys, how would you answer that? What's the definition of a good swing? Control. Something that creates a catch. I'm with you. Extension, power. Like, here's what I was kind of fishing for. There's actually 2 different parts to it, and I'll try to be real quick, but you got where the tip is, where the angle is, and where the breakover is. Okay, that's this side of it. That's really important. On the other side of it, you have your wrist, your forearm, and your shoulder. How many people use the wrist too much? And I don't know if it's exactly a third, and a third, but I've been using that. If you have a third wrist to where your breakover is good, and then your forearm has a lot to do with your extension, and your shoulder, the power. If we have a third, and a third going, you see where I've created like a pretty good swing here, and I can come out of this swing, and the principle of throwing a ball, a javelin, anything, would come into effect. My shoulder's back, I've got power, extension in my arm, but where does the breakdown of this third, and a third happen sometimes? When you start going faster. So like I'll get people to help them with that good swing, and then as we speed the run up, they start speeding their swing up, and what do? Yeah, I mean, he did it, he leaned forward. We leak forward with our upper body, and next thing you know, what am I doing? Yeah, no power or extension. And it's like if I was a little out of position, and wanted to, the steer was whipping away from me, if I've given up my swing and my posture, I can't do that. If I've given up, if I'm hustling in the run, everything's going fast, and I start leaning over and I get my arm out in front of me, I have no extension left in my arm, okay? So again, with these drills, you can consciously think about quite a few different things. You know, like back to my drill I was talking about, nothing but horsemanship, work with my horse, put my rope down, go all the way through my corkscrew. My horse is doing good, I'm sitting up doing good. Then as we accelerate down the arena and I get ready for this corner, pick up my rope. I'm not going real fast. Let's say we're going 8, 9 miles an hour. I'm trying to maintain this good swing here, and I'm coming through here just like, don't leak, don't lean, don't lean. I'm talking to myself, I'm coaching on myself, trying to get my swing to stay hooked to where I come around and throw a nice loop. And it's like, all right, that's great. How many times should you do that to establish, you know, a good swing and to not come apart? Repetition. How many free throws should you shoot to where that kid starts making every free throw? That's one thing I would just try to encourage people is like practice on purpose. You know, if you want to be able to come in the corner and not get too close and have your swing stay together to where you throw a nice loop, it's like do that at 8 miles an hour. Maybe do that 10 times in a row. And if you do it really well, then go to 10 miles an hour and then go to 12 miles an hour. I promise you somewhere through there it'll start breaking down a little bit. I mean, even the top ropers. I mean, I rope help so many 7s and 8s and 9s. And I can create scenarios to break them down because it happens to all of us. You watch us, well, I thought them guys were so good. You watch us on wild, fresh cattle that run hard, that don't come around and hop the same, and we won't look like a 10 anymore. I mean, because the level of healing is so, I mean, just admitting that, you know, all my life, I mean, I can look pretty darn good at a medium speed steer and a great handle. I mean, I can hardly ever miss one. But then you put wild, fresh steers in there and have somebody handle them tough, I can't catch everyone. The level of difficulty, nobody can. But you got to almost understand that principle there. Yeah, we're better at catching those fast, wild steers than anybody else, but we still can't catch them all. That's where the level of play is went up to the roof. So think about that. I mean, again, obviously that's why I'm here, just showing people about like the value of the Smarty, like what we've found. I mean, we have people calling us up, telling us how happy they are. Thank you for the Smarty, telling us about how their roping has turned around. And literally they're just telling me what I'm telling you guys. Now honestly, I'm practicing right. He goes, sometimes I don't even rope cattle of at night. I'll rope but Smarty's no different than a practice or like an exercise machine. Everybody kind of knows, hey, it's more fun to rope, realistic, but if you don't use it right, a lot of people will just take it in a big old circle and rope it in a circle, warm up on it, and then go to steers. And I mean, it almost like hurts my feelings because there's so much more to it. I have a website, bachroping.com. It's free, and I'm going to try my best this year to put as many different drills on there to help you guys with as many different things as there is in roping. And it's free. I mean, honestly, I really hope that everyone that's already bought one of my Smarties will watch that and they'll start really properly using it. Because obviously, I want to sell them, but it's a word of mouth. It is sold so good because of word of mouth. If you guys was to watch my website and practice better and smarter on it, the neighbor sees you do it, sees your rope and get better. That's the honest to goodness marketing that I've been after. that's why I feel like, try to be a good teacher, try to be a good coach, and share with people. Position, swing, timing, delivery. Everybody asks me about the Smarty. Why did you not make another machine that hops? I made one that hopped. It didn't work for me with my coaching program. At 12 miles an hour, it would kind of match the stride of the steer. Slower or faster, you had to try to ignore what your horse was doing and just try to rope the machine. And it started creating stabbing at the feet, floating your rope, not riding your horse. None of the top guys wanted to rope them, was the honest truth. So I tried to figure out what I would like to rope. And what you do when you're heeling a steer, like with timing, you don't realize it, but you're in rhythm with your horse and you're in sync with your horse. Even when you warm up, you'll come up and you'll swing at about the same speed as what your horse's stride is doing. What I've been helping people with lately is making sure and pointing that out. No matter if you're going 10 miles an hour or 12, 14, 16 miles an hour, you swing with your horse's front end. And when you do, your horse's front end is going to match the hind end of that steer. So you're going to be practicing timing when you're roping this. But don't just rope it at 10 miles an hour with a great big open slow swing. Yeah, you can be successful at that, but what happens when you draw that little black heifer that runs hard? You gotta tighten your swing up and learn to stay with your horse's stride. And when you're going like really fast, you can't have a great big open swing. You've got to learn to tighten your swing down like this right here. You still have a third, and a third going on, but it's just a scaled down swing. Clay Cooper does it so good. You'll see Patrick does that good. He scales his swing down to where it's just right here. But yet, you watch them with their horse, they're right in sync with that horse. I'm just right with my horse, so I'm in time with his stride. I come around there, I keep my spacing off of my corner, and then I come around there and I'm in time, and I come out of my last swing into my delivery when I rope the Smarty. And what it's doing is creating a really good practice habit, like a muscle memory. Finish like that, finish like that. The guy that can finish with his hand in that position is going to control his bottom strand. You guys that are healers, like the delivery is so simple when you really watch these guys when they're roping here at the finals. Obviously the rope is coming from here to there, and when they're in the air like that, right when you get to there, you're catching them. Whether they're an inch off the ground, a height of their jump, like 18 inches off the ground, or almost hitting the ground, sometimes I'll heel a steer right before he hits the ground, but it's with that same delivery every time. But what is it that keeps me with my hand like that? And again, I've taught Marty Becker that, Patrick Smith that, Paul Eves that. I mean, I can go right down the list of all these guys that I just showed them. Like, right there is your delivery, like a guy tying on. And then after the fact is getting your slack. You keep contact with it, you roll your hand over, now we're pulling our slack. Well, when people are like floating it or stabbing it, a lot of times they'll move the position of their hand up to get their slack right there, and they'll end up disturbing that bottom strand. I mean, it's really simple, and it's a simple fix. Like, tell me what happened to my bottom strand right here. Is that pretty easy to see? What is my hand doing? What do you see? Where do you see the position of our hand when you're looking at pictures? Do you see it in the pictures here, or do you see it here? I mean, go ahead and be honest. It's more like this, isn't it? You can't hardly get a camera to take a picture there. When they squeeze it, the shutter speed, it's always like that there. So it's almost like it creates in a person's mind that his hand has to be flat or like that. But that's not true. It's like a real bad misconception.
Naturally reaching to catch the strand down.
When you deliver, whether you head or heel, if you don't want to split the horns, you obviously keep your hand like that. If you're going to split the horns, you're going to reach for your slack too early. Simple. That's what does that. Heeling, if you want to keep the bottom strand down, you keep your hand in that position. That's why when someone tells you to put the bottom down, it works. I mean, I don't like doing that too much because it'll keep people from getting their tip through there. But by keeping their hand down, putting the bottom down, that keeps that hand in that position. It's a kind of a trick to get you to keep that hand in that position. But a lot of times you'll stop your rope if you do that. What I've just taught all my life was just coming from here to there, hesitating, like again, creating a good habit on the ground of working on my third, and a third, my swing, and watching that feet go in it, counting to like 5, and then rolling my hand over, breaking this in 2. Part 1, part 2 of my delivery. And then when you do that, I mean, you should, by all rights, you should be able to rope and pull your slack 50 times in a row and never short yourself out and never turn your hand over too early. I've drilled myself all my life to be able to do that without shorting myself. Like that guy that you can tell that has shot a jillion free throws, timeout, they're on the bench, they're trying to make the guy nervous, he shot 1 free throw. While the coach is talking to everybody, that guy in his mind, you'll even see him over there doing that mental deal. You see him, right? Like, just in his mind, he's going to finish. That's the way I've done. I like basketball, so I've related a lot of it to, okay, I'm just going to finish. Then I'm going to turn my hand over. My coach used to make me take one hand, shoot my free throws like that, watch the ball go in the hoop, bounce 3 times. Then I could move my hand. And I felt like a dork out there doing it, but it really created really good mechanics, and it created a habit of watching the ball go in the hoop before I backed away from it. Does that make any sense to why, if you don't want to sit down too early, do you want a positive answer to fix your problem? You know what I'm saying? Like I've told people all day long, all right, you got to stay down, follow through, take it to his leg. And without doing something like that, I'll have to remind them all day long. But if I can get them to isolate that and work on that to where, you know, they do it for maybe 30 minutes of just staying down there and training themselves to hesitate in that position, then they go out and rope on the horse, that same hesitation will be there. So instead of you telling yourself, oh, don't lean back, there's no negative into it. It's what you've trained your subconscious. Does that make sense? So what I'm in essence saying is, when you're practicing, a good practice program is you're training your horse every jump of the run what to do in the slowest speed to where he does a flawless run. And the same with you. Your posture is good, your swing is good, you don't break down, you relax, you see everything really clear through every part of the run. And it doesn't take very long at all, and I can have somebody making what I call almost like the perfect run, but it's at a slow speed. And then slowly speed it up. That is the dead sure way of you getting better every time you go out in the arena. And my kids get tired of me saying that, but it's like the only thing I'm fearful in roping with the boys is that they're going to plateau out and not keep getting better. I mean, until Joel already is a number 10, but till Tyler's a number 10, I want to keep making sure his program is right so that he doesn't hit a wall. And the number 4 or 5 that practices right and keeps herself sharp, by all means, they should be able to come here and have the best chance to win 100,000 out here of anybody, but because of their fundamentals. They're in a good position, their swing is right. Position, swing affects delivery. It's like position, swing, timing, and heeling affects delivery. If you practice your delivery on the ground and it's right, which it's just like shooting around, shooting free throws, then when you're in the game, if I work on getting myself in the right spot and make sure that I'm taking the right shot, I'm in time before I throw it, I use some discipline of when to throw, and I pick the right shot, then it's like roping the dummy. In my mind, I've created the situation just like, wow, it's just like roping the dummy. And these guys that are so good now, watch Paul, watch Patrick, watch Jade Corkle. By the time they pull the trigger, meaning throw it, every time they get ready to throw it, it looks like they're standing there roping the dummy. You know, and it's like, gosh, I wish I could. I mean, them guys, they've taken their horsemanship to, when I was a kid, it was more like just rope them wherever they could. And I just go out there and rope all day long, and after you get so good at roping, you got to have some horsemanship to help you get better. Anyway, you guys have any questions on any of this? Well, good. Well, how are we on time? 10 more minutes? It goes fast. Any questions that any of you guys specifically want to ask? Do you guys hear what he said there? He has a horse that's rating back a little bit. Is there any drills to keep the horse loose? Yeah, definitely. Your legs are a real important thing riding a horse like that. Trying really hard not to move your shoulders, like don't telegraph any signal, and then keep your legs moving into your horse all the way into your delivery. And to me, a horse like that doesn't need to be dallied on a whole lot. But what's kind of good on the Smarty is it's not much of a jerk, so you can push into your throw a little bit right there and hold your slack and dally, and instead of like avoiding that, to where all you do when you get out on a live steer and you take one hard jerk, well, now your horse is cheating you. To me, it's like dally, but just have the driver barely hit you. That's what, like I made this with spring here. It's like, it's really stout. I mean, you can't even pull this together with your hand. What I wanted to do is create like a little strain on the saddle horn to where like a horse like you're talking about, I could push into my delivery and dally and just barely let that horse have a little hit, make a successful run. I mean, sure, a couple times push them through it a little bit, but a little bit of that goes a long way, and then pretty soon you're kicking them out of their stop, and you don't want to do that. It's more of the timing between not cueing them with your leaning and using your legs and pushing into it, but then letting them get used to, like, that wasn't a hard hit, that wasn't a hard hit. Does that make sense? Because you have this, and the tow bar. And it's like, I really try between, say, me and whoever's driving, if I want just part one of the hit, barely hit something on the saddle horn, or that and the second spring, or all three of them, once in a while I want them to go ahead and melt into it and take a pretty solid, but I never wanted a hard hit on the saddle horn. I would do that at different speeds and see where, see where the biggest problem is. Probably at slow, I'm sure we all do that. I mean, that's just such a concentration deal we got to work on, because, man, there'll be something right on that last one. We'll think about that delivery, anticipate it, and we'll lean a little bit or move out that way or shorten our swing a little bit. Like Les Bow, he's a really good horseman. He told me, if a horse can feel a fly on his neck, he can surely feel a grown person lean. You know, even when I lean like that, if he can feel a fly hit on his neck, he can. So that's how in tune we need to be of what we're doing with them. Anybody else got a? Did you guys hear what he said? How quick am I thinking about my timing? I will start about the third jump out of the arena. And I don't know, can you see me do this right here? Am I emulating the steer's hip or the legs? His hip. That's real easy to see, isn't it? It's like, you know, like timing is nothing but he's up, he's down, he's up, he's down, up, up, up. So when I'm coming out, I've taught everybody this way. Like when you're coming out, watch the steer's hip. Watch his feet, but with your peripheral vision, watch his hip when it's coming up. And as you're going down there and you're staying in time with your horse's stride, just be also concentrated on that. And then as that steer comes around, you read that corner. Sometimes that timing will change a little bit, but it's no big deal. It's just like that kid on this end of the rope and that end of the rope, and the speed of the jump rope speeds up. You read that. And as that comes around and you read that steer gets into a fast-footed situation or gets heavy and slows down, you got to notice that. I mean, because you can't just swing 12 miles an hour if that steer speeds up on you. You can't swing 12 miles an hour if he slows down. You got to be able to change and adapt to that. But by coming down the arena and watching it helps me so much. I'm not like overly worried about it, but definitely that's part of my, does that help? And it also helps you watch the feet. A lot of people, their eyes will go everywhere. They'll watch the head rope go on instead of watching. Your target is right here. Your target area is right here. Not a spot on the right leg or the left leg, but this whole box right here. And that's my target. But I can't help when I'm watching that target with my peripheral vision, I can see his hip going up and down. If I try to time the legs, they look like they're going so fast sometimes that it'll mess you up. But I can see that tempo, like listening to music, that true tempo is this right here. And even the fastest runs, it's not as, if you see that true tempo of the hip coming up and down, it's not as fast as you think it is. It's just the stride of your horse. By the way, on your timing, if you will, watch that and stay in sync with your horse. If you come around there and you stay in sync with your horse and that steer gets heavy or changes, by you staying here, that helps you keep your swing together instead of looking and floating and coming disengaged with your horse. Because if you'll stay connected with your horse, no matter what that steer does, that next swing or two, when things come back together and match up with your horse, you haven't given up your swing. You've kept your swing together. You kept the speed of your swing where it's right. And then now that he's ready to heel, I mean, we've all done it though. I mean, I've totally disengaged from my horse, floated it, and then now he takes a nice hop and I have no power on it. And I'm upside down. Anybody else? Are we about, huh? All right. Yeah, that was 10 minutes ago. No, that's good. No, we're cool. How many headers do I have here? Several? I'm sorry, I'm just totally isolated on the heelers. I'll try to go through something real quick, but there's an amazing amount of things that you can work on when you're using the Smarty, more than just loping up there and just roping the thing. For one, like remember I was talking about position? It's like, where does your arm need to be when you're roping coming onto a steer? Where does it need to be when you throw it? Back here, obviously, right? So do you guys realize there's a timing there of when to pick your rope up to make sure that it's right in this position, right when if you want to throw it 12 foot back, your arm needs to be right there. And if not, that's why you sometimes have to take another swing and get all squared back up with the steer. So this is a really simple drill, but I've been having everybody at home do it to start with. I'll have them practice coming framed up, right up lane 2, and quite a ways back. Pick the rope up and take at least 3 swings. 1, 2, 3, and rope without stopping their horse, where you don't depend on rate to rope. I mean, and there's maybe a real beginner person shouldn't do that for a while, but somebody that's trying to take their rope into another level and get kind of a revelation of what's going on when they're trying to hustle the run up and speed it up. So like I've watched Clay Tryon lope up to it, sitting dead still. He can lope up to it and just 1, 2, 3, crack, have it tight here, tight on the horn, and just lope away. I'll just have you start like walking. Walk up there, throw right in the right spot, keep your left hand right, get on the horn, and go in a big circle out here. Just coil your rope up, get ready again, then pick it up. And see what you can do is then you emulate drills like that. Like as you're going slow, you practice coming onto it. Like if the Smarty's going 8 miles an hour, you come onto it like 12, and you go ahead and rope right when you get there and get it tight, and ease out of there and go ahead and practice that nice handle. But instead of always relying on, does that make any sense to anybody? That will speed your roping up so much you can't believe it. And if you find yourself doing this and when you're pulling your slack, you got way too much slack, what did I do wrong right there? I pulled that coil out. A lot of people haven't been shown, to keep that coil in there and slide up here. So when you're coming into your shot, you rope and you pull your slack, if you'll do that, it'll be tight and on the horn. Because if you are like speeding your run up and you're coming up there and you are getting good at roping coming to a steer, you pull all this, where's the rope going to come tight when you get out? You'll be out there an extra stride away from the steer and you're going to hit that steer really hard, or you're going to have to slow your horse down to get that slack out of it. So it's really important. There's some mechanics that go along with this while you're doing it. Really good drill. Horses that break in the right lead, like we have one right now that my wife is going to ride here in a couple days. And what I did is I'd have her, remember the corkscrew I talked about, like going out and going into this big circle? I'd have her hold her rope and just come into lane 2, and I would go into a big circle. And as I was going in the circle, it'd create an opportunity for that horse to be moving to the left, get the left lead started right, just follow that around, no swinging, keep her nice and chilled out. And then when we get lined up to go straight down the arena, she's already in her left lead. Her shoulders and hips are really good. And I set her up to make a really nice run that way, instead of like settling for breaking in the right lead every other time. You can eliminate that pretty darn quick by working on that right there. But it's almost like you got to somewhat think about ways of getting in that horse's head, because horses are just a reflection of us. And I've listened to lots of horse trainers, and it's all psychology. They're amazing animals, and it's like if we're able to get on their level and be able to present what we want them to do in the right way, easy enough, slow enough, I mean, it won't take very long and say you wouldn't have that horse in the right lead. Now, on the other hand, when I do this, I set them up to do, then when they're doing it really well, I'll come out of this circle and I'll break to the right fence to test them, to see if they're going to hold the right lead. Like when a steer goes to the right fence is usually when a head horse hangs and won't move over. When you've used that drill enough and then eventually worked it to where he would go over there and hold that left lead, well, pretty soon your horse can laterally move to the right with his left foot forward, and he can do it fast. Like I watched Speedy, he really makes them muleys go to the right fence, and it's a real long arena. And his horses will run as fast as they will straight. They'll run off to the right straight. But he's taught them how to move over there holding that left lead. Does that make sense to you guys? I mean, that's just a couple little, facing to me is a big deal. You can either unhook this and use just the sled to where you can really see what you're doing as far as the pattern. But I'm big on going in a big circle to the right and teaching that horse to pull like straight behind him, and then which is at 6 o'clock, then 5 o'clock going in the circle, then I'll use my leg and at 4 o'clock just go around this circle to where I'm the pressure on the saddle horn. The weakest point of a horse is 3 o'clock. It's like if I was side passing and pulling the log, that's the weakest point. And to me, if you learn to get them horses strong all the way to 3 o'clock and keep working that, keep going in that circle, and then step that horse out of that circle and pivot and back up. And then what I've been having a lot of guys do is, especially if we use the sleds of the Smarty, go straight up the arena, go towards the left fence, come back up the wall, and face. And if that ever slows down, that means that the heeler probably going to lose a leg. And I mean, to me, it's like you watch, say, Jake, he always has the greatest finish at the NFR. He's so good at setting his horse up and finishing. And if you really appreciate horsemanship, watch all the different headers. Some of them will kind of get their horses in a bind, and some of them, Trevor's another one, is so good that he knows where that horse's footwork is all the time. So he'll just set that horse up to where that rope is tied all the time. The heeler never loses a leg, never gives the pressure back to the steer's head to where he fast hops the heeler on the last swing. I mean, to me, a top heeler, that's so important. That header that don't know how to face and help finish the run, man, they can mess your delivery up and you can lose so many legs. Are we?
Yeah, Alan, I hate to do it, buddy. I could listen all day. You'll be back tomorrow, is that right?
Yes, sir.
Perfect. Ladies and gentlemen, my friend, 4-time world champion, Mr. Alan Bach right here.
Thank you, guys.
Alan, thank you. He'll probably hang around here for 10 minutes or so if y'all want to.